Welcome back. Welcome back to the KP Speaks. Today, it's a wonderful day for the entire world. Today is the birth anniversary of Dr. Baba Saheb Ramji Ambedkar, popularly known as Dr. Ambedkar in India. Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar is a global human rights activist. He has pathed, he has shown the pathway for the entire world as to how to define human rights and how to fight for the human rights. He is a chief architect of the Constitution of India, which is renowned, which is discussed worldwide as the best constitution that was ever drafted. And he is the chief architect and drafter he drafted the Indian Constitution. We should take a very quick look as to what are the very basic elements of this Constitution of India when he drafted it. When women were not given voting rights in many advanced nations in 1947. The setting is all in 1947 when India got independence. And Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar was asked to be the chairperson of the Constitution of the drafting committee. At that moment, in the entire world, there were several advanced nations where women were not given a voting right. They were denied a voting right in their elections, of the presidential elections. And that is a time as a revolutionary thought. Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar fought and introduced equal rights to women in India on par with the men to vote their government. That's a revolutionary thought way back in 1947. Then he's a great champion of human rights. He spoke about equality everywhere in every sphere of life, whether it is social, political, economic, religious, whatever. He only stood for equality. And the Constitution of India is a great document in that direction. In fact, he was so fond and passionate about equality and rights of depressed classes and of women. It's so unfortunate when he was actually penning down the Hindu code, which was basically revolving around the equal rights of women. On 6th December 1956, he breathed his last while actually penning down when he's sitting on his desk and writing down the Hindu code, which basically meant equal rights for women. So this is Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar. He fought for human rights of everybody, particularly not necessarily of depressed class. This is the irony of life. This is unfortunate that everybody talks about him as an activist for depressed classes or he's a champion of the rich. No, he's a champion of humanity. He's a champion of humanity. He gave every Indian a right to cast vote. When many countries in the world were not having equal rights, and India was just not in a mood to give equal rights to all Indians. He is the person who has given the voting right to each and every Indian citizen. So, if that is so, when he has given rights to everybody, why is that Indians corner him saying that he's a Dalit leader or he's a leader of the middle classes? It's very unfortunate. He's not. He is a national leader. In fact, later on we'll see that how he was denied to be the Prime Minister of India. He should have been the Prime Minister of India after the independence. He was denied. Like Babu Jagjivan Ram was again denied to be the Prime Minister in 1977, 30 years later. There's a huge conspiracy, apartheid policy that is followed in India that prevents persons and eminent figures coming from depressed classes to occupy high offices. If there are some, they are all symbolic and not having any powers. But Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar and Babuji Jagjivan Ram fought their way. They earned whatever was due to them. They earned them, they fought and got them. And when we look at the life history of Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar, born in 1891, 14th April today, at a very young age of 23 years, he went to Columbia University and did n number of courses, graduation courses, post-graduation courses, and PhDs. He did graduation and post-graduation in economics, sociology, anthropology, philosophy, whatnot. So many. Today, everybody gets and confused as to what exactly was he. But later on, he went to London School of Economics, did economics. So well read for his times, he was much ahead of his times as far as education is concerned. And then he had a lot of harassments being meted out during his school days. He was not allowed to drink water along with the other forward caste or community students in the classroom. He was not allowed to sit on the bench, he and his other students. When he was thirsty, because having walked for several kilometers or several miles to come to school, then, or in the middle of the school, if he's thirsty, there was a, because of the apartheid policy, they're not supposed to touch the glasses or water of other students. So the peon used to come and pour the water like this, and these poor students used to drink water like this. They used to follow the hand, and there's a water like that. And when the peon, the person who's attending the class, who's assisting the teacher, if he's for some reason not attending that school, or he is on leave or something, he's not able to come to school. So that day, since nobody to pour the water, there was no water. They can't drink water because there's nobody to pour the water. So he wrote an article. No peon, no, in a particular day the peon doesn't come to school, they had no water to drink. So that was the situation. What? Apartheid, 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 discrimination, 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 everywhere. That's how he came up. He came up in a very hard way. He faced a lot of hardships. That hardships has actually made him to lead some very important movements in India, social movements, public movements. In 1927, at the age of 36 years, he led people, 15,000 people, to drink water. It's were not permitted to drink water in a public tank. It's a public tank, and they were not allowed to drink water. And whereas others, the forward communities, can do anything on the shores of the tank, anything. They can spoil, filth it. But Dalits were not permitted to drink water from that same tank. So he led 15,000 people, a large number of people, to go and drink water. That is the first public movement he led. Then, 3 years later, at the age of 39 years in 1930, he took another massive group of 20,000 people for a temple entry. Dalits were not allowed to enter there. The untouchability was followed. Dalits were not allowed to enter the temples. So he took a very strong team of Dalits with a hope that the caste Hindus will allow them to enter the temple in Kalara, Nashik. But unfortunately, they were these protesters were beaten up and sent back. That is the second movement he did. The third movement was a very, very silent movement, very deep-rooted movement, very thought-provoking movement. In 1956, at the age of 65 years, he converted himself into Buddhism, and 500,000 Dalits were waiting on his wings to get converted from Hinduism to Buddhism along with him. And they did it. That was the third movement he led. So he is a man of movement, not only a man of books. He read books. He wrote PhDs. He's a doctorate. Very early in his life, he wrote about ancient Indian commerce. He wrote about caste system in India. And his work on annihilation of caste is very, very famous, read by every person in India. And annihilation as cause of caste, his article again actually brought some differences between him and Gandhiji, ideological differences. academic differences. They debated, they discussed, and with mixed reactions. So even when there was a discussion of the separate electorate for the Dalits or the depressed classes, not Dalits, depressed classes of the time. And Mahatma Gandhi ji was in the jail and he went on fast, asking everybody to convince Dr. Ambedkar not to insist on separate electorate. And unfortunately, under coercion, Dr. Ambedkar has agreed to drop that idea, and that was called Pune Pact in 1932. So therefore, we got into the open general electorate, but reserved constituencies for the depressed classes. That is what we follow today. But it is not his intention. He was never in that. He wanted to have a separate electorate. And Dr. As far as institutions are concerned, we talked about the Constitution of India and the Reserve Bank of India. What we see today is the concept. Remember, he went to London School of Economics. He traveled a lot. He'd been in US. He'd been in London. He saw the banking system as an economic student. He proposed to Reserve Bank of India in India and got the Reserve Bank of India instituted, which many people know about. Let's very quickly talk about what are the important provisions that he has created in the Constitution of India. Article 15, Article 16, and Article 17. Remember, one of his movements is temple entry movement. Keep that in mind. Temple entry movement is a very big movement in his life. He took nearly 20,000 people to Kalaram temple in Nashik for temple entry because Dalits were not allowed to enter the temple. So this is one point that you should keep in mind. One big movement. The second thing is water. Water has played a big role in Dr. Ambedkar's life. He was denied water in his classroom in the school. Remember, no pure, no water. He was denied water. He was denied drinking water. And he led a movement in Malad tank, leading thousands of people to drink water from a public tank. So these are the two things we should keep in mind: temple entry and water. So now here is Constitution of India. Here you are, the Constitution of India, Volume 1. I have 3 volumes. And these are all the speeches and writings of Dr. Ambedkar. Annihilation of Caste appears in volume number 1 of his speeches and writings of Dr. Ambedkar. So we talked about Article 15, 16, and 17 of Indian Constitution. Quickly, is that Article 15? Read about it. Article 15 says, yeah, prohibition of discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, repeat, caste, sex, or place of birth. So it is prohibition of discrimination. Two negative words, make it positive. Prohibition, first negative word. Discrimination is the second negative word. Negative of negative. Prohibition of discrimination is the article. And in that, he talks about the Constitution of India is talking about nothing in this article shall prevent the state from making any special provision for the advancement of any socially and educationally backward classes. So in Article 15.5, in fact, what it mentions is nothing in this article, blah blah blah, shall prevent the state from making any special provision by law for the advancement of any socially and educationally backward classes of citizens or for the SCs and STs insofar as such special provisions relate to their admission to educational institutions, including private educational institutions. Remember, including private educational institutions, whether aided or unaided by the state, other than the minority educational institutions. So, repeat, nothing in this article prevents the state from making any special provision for the advancement of SCs oblique RSCs in making special provisions relating to admission to educational institutions, including private educational institutions. So, making special provisions for SCs and STs for admission in educational institution. Largely, Article 15 is talking about admission into educational institutions. Now, let's quickly go to Article 16. Now, in Article 16, Article 16 is opportunity equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. Just now in Article 15 we talked about education. Now in Article 16 we are talking about public employment. While in Article 15 we talked about education in private educational institutions also, but in Article 16 it appears to be restrictive to public employment. So there are two positive words used: equality. Two, second word is opportunity. So equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. So 16.4 says nothing in this article shall prevent the state from making any provision for the reservation of appointments or posts in favor of any backward class of citizens which in the opinion of state is not adequately represented in the services under the state. So the reservation is used here in Article 16.4 in favor of backward class of citizens. That is the second word we should note, and the third note is which is not adequately represented. So we talked about equality, opportunity, public employment, and reservation in Article 16.4. So when then we said his all entire movement of Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar was temple entry. Where is the temple entry mentioned? It is not mentioned in 15. Article 15 doesn't talk about temple entry. What it says is prohibition of discrimination on grounds, etc., etc. The state shall not discriminate any citizen with regard to the use of wells, tanks, bathing gardens, roads, and places of public resort maintained wholly or partly out of state funds or dedicated to the use of general public. Where is the temple? The word temple is missing here. Entry to the temple. He fought in his entire life against untouchability, prohibition, or prevention that is from entering temple. Where is it mentioned? Water is mentioned. The use of wells, tanks, bathing gardens is mentioned in Article 15.2b. So I'm surprised as a student of Constitution of India, where is temple entry mentioned? I found some mention in Article 17, which says abolition of untouchability. So untouchability is abolished and its practice in any form is forbidden. The enforcement of any disability arising out of untouchability shall be an offence punishable in accordance with the law. So the word temple or the temple entry is not used, but untouchability is mentioned. So it is for different people to interpret why and how the biggest movement that he led in two areas. One is the temple entry, the second is a conversion to Buddhism. Both these things as positive words do not find a mention in the Constitution of India, while even though he is the chief architect or the chairman of the drafting committee. So what prevented him from doing that? Obviously, there was tremendous amount of pressure, coercion, everything. He was not allowed to do the best that he wanted to do for this country. He was prevented. He was asked to write a document with his hands tied behind his back. The forces, other members in the drafting committee, the other forward caste people in the Constituent Assembly did not prevent Dr. Ambedkar to have all the things that he wanted to have for the poor people of the country, for the depressed classes of this country. Here is a champion of human rights. Here is a champion of women rights. Here is a champion of depressed classes. Fought all alone. Nobody supported him. He had 100 people in front of him fighting against him. He was the only person. He could give maximum to us. He could give maximum to the underprivileged. He could give maximum to the deprived classes. He gave everything. And look, we as a nation took 34 years to recognize what he has done for the country. The country has finally conferred the highest civilian award called Bharat Ratna after 34 years of his death in 1956. He died in 1956. In 1990, he was finally posthumously conferred with Bharat Ratna. Dr. Baba Saheb Ramji Ambedkar. Bharat Ratna, Dr. Baba Saheb Ramji Ambedkar. We salute you. Jai Bhim. Jai Bhim is what every Dalit raises his slogan when he thinks about Dr. Ambedkar. When there is a chant of Jai Bhim, Jai Bhim, Jai Bhim, thousands, lakhs of voices roll up into the sky. There is a surcharge of emotion. Everybody is united under one word, Jai Bhim. Bhim is his name, Bhim Rao. So everybody says Jai Bhim out of affection and love. So today, I'm so glad to talk about Dr. Ambedkar, his birth anniversary. Jai Bhim.